Rose Petals, Chapter 7. Maya could hear the sound of loud music as she approached the stairway. Mrs. Wilsworth opened her door. Luckily for them, she was partially deaf, and as for the plumbers, they threw wild parties all the time. "How was your day, sweetie?" "Okay." Maya knew that she would somehow ask her about her cats. "No, I haven't seen any of your cats." "Okay, darling, just keep an eye out for me, please. And send them straight home." She chuckled. "It seems they're not too pleased with my company." Maya smiled back. "I will." Sometimes she wondered how an elderly woman like Mrs. Wilsworth survived all these years in a foreign land. Her husband had long passed, and she never received any company after the funeral. It wasn't apparent if it was her family who had refused to see her, or if she didn't want to be bothered with them. She knew that she received some form of government check. Maybe her husband was a military personnel. As she headed up the stairs, she fumbled for her keys. The door flew open and a guy came staggering out. He was dead drunk, speaking to himself, his speech slurring, as he kept throwing his hands in the air. He moved towards her. "Hey, beautiful." He reached for her, still staggered. She quickly moved out of his way and watched as he went tumbling down the flights of stairs, hitting the concrete hard. He lifted his arm to the air, giving a thumbs up, and with slurred speech yelled out, "I'm okay." Placing his arm back to his side, he laid there sprawled out on the ground and began snoring. Naoko and Shiho looked up at the same time as she entered. There were 2 other girls that Maya had never met before, and 8 guys, including the one knocked out at the entranceway. It was 2 guys for every girl, something only Shiho would have thought of. She craved attention from men, and the more there were for her, the merrier. Shiho and Naoko didn't bother to tell her about the fiesta. They both knew that she would oppose it, especially since she didn't know any of the men. As for the 2 women there, they seemed rather snobbish and didn't even bother to greet her. She would have opposed them too. Maya could tell that they were rich and was most likely part of the elite circle of friends that Shiho had since high school. Or possibly new people from college. It was easy for Shiho to make friends unlike her. Money spoke for everything. You didn't have to say a word. Just walk into any room and all eyes would be on you, or might I say your shoes, bags, clothing, jewelry, cell phone case, etc. For Maya, it was different. All eyes were always on her because of her natural beauty. Her tanned complexion, long jet black hair and almond-shaped green eyes, and her nose piercing that gave off a hint of reflection, made both men and women stare. You can throw her in some rags, and she would still catch the eye of the beholder. This might also be the real reason Shiho and Naoko did not tell her about the party. They were hoping that her interview would take all day, and she would somehow get lost on the bus in the heart of Tokyo. More men too admire their beauty. Maya quickly excused herself from the crowd, darting past the eyes of any man that would get up to approach her, and ran into her room. She locked her door and sat on her bed. Today was just too much for her. First, she almost had a brush with death, and that self-centered idol, whatever his name may be, had basically thrown himself all over her. And now this. She sighed and collapsed onto her mattress. Her phone rang and she scrambled quickly to retrieve it. "Hello, Maya? This is Miss Adachi." "Oh, hi. How are you, my dear?" "I'm fine, thank you. And yourself?" "Fine, fine." There was a brief pause. "Oh dear. I was calling to let you know that we're holding another audition, and I would like to put you down as a contestant." "Really? Are you sure? Yes. But I bombed the first one. Yes, I know. But it seems as though you have a few people. Another pause. A few men in your corner. Really? Who? I'm not obliged to say. Well, at least not at this moment. I guess you left an impression on them. I couldn't have. I screwed up. Well, my dear, they are willing to give you a second chance, and so am I. So, how about it? Can I put you down as a contestant? Yes, yes. Thank you so much. I'll text you the date and time when it is all arranged. Okay, thank you. Don't thank me, it wasn't my doing. Talk to you later, bye-bye. Maya laid back down and stared at her phone. She couldn't believe the conversation she just had with Miss Adachi. She wondered who it was that had made this arrangement for her. Maybe it was the older gentleman that she saw Miss Adachi whispering to. She had heard that he owned a major record label in Tokyo and Seoul. His headquarters were in Korea, but he had a small branch in Tokyo. Many amateurs and wannabes were dying to get into his company. Then her mind drifted to the incident that happened earlier. Those cold silver eyes staring at her. It was those same eyes that caused her to lose her thoughts and made her nervous and uncomfortable that she ran out of the room. Still, those eyes stared intensely at her approaching enemy and probably scared that lunatic off. Why was she thinking about him at a moment like this? She should be ecstatic that she got another chance for stardom. God had answered her prayers, even though she did not pray about the incident at all. She had decided to forget about it and put it to the back of her mind, hoping that she would somehow recover from this tragedy and start auditioning again. But for another agency. She sat up quickly. I must do my best. The few people, the thought of it being just men bothered her. The people that believe in me are counting on me. She raised her hands in the air. I'm going to show everyone what I'm made of. Fighting. She fell back onto her bed. She was more than ready to fight for her dreams. The only problem was him. What if he was there again, staring at her as he did before? She would have to find a way to block him out. Would it be appropriate to wear dark shades, or is that too much? She closed her eyes. Maybe this will work, but she saw him staring back at her. Why was he so etched in her thoughts? Perhaps she could look at the other judges. She knew her best bet was to pray that he wouldn't be there. Or maybe she can pray for some delay until her part was over. Would she be able to face him again? He probably would make her even more nervous, because of today's situation. What if he taunts her? He seemed like the type, almost like Shiho. A rich snob. But yet he was kind enough to help her when she was desperate. She turned on her stomach, closed her eyes, and said, Dear God, let him not be there. Or delay him somehow. Please give me a chance to make it. After a few more pleading to God, she began to relax and drifted off into a sleep. The noise from the outside was slowly fading as her heavy eyelids began to close. She turned over to her side and allowed her sleep to now consume her, taking her into a dream or perhaps La La Land. There was a sudden knock on her door. Maya jumped up, still groggy from sleep. She looked at the time. It was midnight. She could still hear loud music playing. There was another knock. Before she could get out of bed, Naoko poked her head in. Sorry to be a bother, but we're out of booze. I was wondering if you could run down to the convenience store and grab us a few. It's late and I had a long day. A bad day to be exact. Naoko looked back at the others who were too busy socializing to even notice her. She entered the room and closed the door. She sat on the bed beside her. What happened? She told her of the ordeal of the lunatic, making sure to leave out the hero of the story. Instead, she said some random guy had helped her. She doubts Naoko or anyone would believe that it was a member of Seven that came to her rescue. She herself couldn't believe it. Not because Seven was the talk of everyone, but because those eyes were very cold. Who would have thought that he would even offer to walk her to the bus station and wait until she got on? It seemed he was popping up everywhere she was. Why was he at the hospital? Didn't famous people have their own private doctors to go to? Come to think of it, no riots were caused by his presence. That alone was odd. Especially since she saw how people reacted at the airport. Then again, it was a hospital. What was even more strange, security wasn't tight. She couldn't find a security guard on the lobby floor. That only could mean that the staff was used to his presence. Maybe he had some kind of disease or something. She looked up at the sudden tap on her shoulder. Naoko hugged her. I'm just glad you're okay. He was probably a rapist or trafficker. Or a killer. Luckily, that nice guy was there. Most people would just mind their own business. She nodded in agreement. Yes, lucky for me. Naoko stood up. Go ahead and rest. I'll go to the store. She quietly closed the door. Maya laid back down. Her mind was racing. Behind those cold eyes, there seems to be someone even more mysterious.